Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a look into the world of national security, focusing on an agency that's critical, but often, well, unseen. The Defense Intelligence Agency, the DIA. You, our listener, shared a really great collection of info on them, and our goal today is to unpack it. Figure out what the DIA is, what they do, and why they're important.
Exactly. We've got this extensive overview you sent covering its history, the structure, its activities,
Yeah.
even some of the, let's say, controversies. I really want to connect the dots for you, maybe uncover some surprising things about this key part of the defense world.
Okay, sounds good. So let's start with the basics then. What is the Defense Intelligence Agency?
Okay, so the DIA, it was officially set up on October 1st, 1961.
661, okay.
Its headquarters are at Joint Base Anacostia Bowling, that's in Washington, D.C.,
Okay.
and their motto gives you a good idea of their focus: committed to excellence in defense of the nation.
Committed to excellence.
Oh.
Okay, and this isn't some small outfit, right? What's the scale we're talking about?
Oh, no, it's significant. More than 16,500 employees.
Wow.
Yeah. It sits under the Department of Defense, the DoD, and it's a major player in the wider intelligence community.
Right.
Its main job, delivering military intelligence, specifically on foreign governments and non-state actors, their military intentions, their capabilities.
So intelligence for policymakers, both civilian and military.
Precisely. It informs those big decisions, and they also play a big role in coordinating intelligence across the different military branches.
So they help the Army, Navy, Air Force intelligence groups work together?
Kind of, yeah. They provide assistance and coordination, ensuring everyone's on the same page at the national level without replacing what the individual services do.
Okay. And is it just about military hardware, troop movements, or is it broader?
Much broader. It covers military-related stuff, sure, but also foreign political situations, economic factors, industrial capacity, geography, even medical and health intelligence if it impacts military readiness.
Huh. Medical intelligence. Interesting.
It really is. And here's something quite striking. The DIA provides about a quarter of all the intelligence content that goes into the president's daily brief.
A quarter. Seriously.
Yep, 25%. That really tells you how vital their military perspective is right at the very top.
That's huge. So they're not just analysts stuck in D.C. then. They're out in the world.
Absolutely. About half their people are overseas, hundreds of locations, including U.S. embassies in, I think, about 140 countries now.
So boots on the ground, so to speak.
In a way, yes. They're big on human source intelligence, humanint. That includes both overt collection, like military attachés, and the clandestine side, too.
Clandestine. Okay, the
Yep.
spy stuff.
That's part of it, yes. Essential for getting certain kinds of information. But they also manage the U.S.'s military diplomatic relations abroad. And, very importantly, they're the national manager for something called MASINT.
MASINT. What's that?
Measurement and Signature Intelligence. It's highly technical, analyzing things like radar signals, acoustic data, nuclear signatures, chemical traces.
Ah, okay. So not just people talking, but analyzing technical data from afar.
Exactly. Crucial for things like verifying treaties or spotting hidden weapons programs. They also run the counterintelligence programs for the whole DoD.
Wow. Okay. So intelligence gathering, analysis, technical stuff, counterintelligence. Do they arrest people? Do they have law enforcement powers?
That's a really important point. No, they don't. Unlike what you might see in movies, the DIA has no law enforcement authority, strictly intelligence.
Got it. And how do they fit into the military structure? Do they report up through the usual generals and admirals?
Actually, no. They report directly to the Secretary of Defense via the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence.
So outside the normal military chain of command.
Correct. It emphasizes their role providing national-level intelligence directly to the top civilian leadership of the DoD.
Okay. And the people doing this work, are they mostly military or civilians?
It's a mix, but maybe not what you'd expect. Back around 2008, about 3/4 were career civilians.
Really?
Yeah.
Civilians?
Yep. Experts in defense, military fields, analysis. But a lot of them, nearly half, 48%, do have prior military service. So you get that blend of deep civilian expertise and practical military experience.
That makes sense. Get both perspectives.
It's key to their analysis, definitely.
And you mentioned something about a memorial wall earlier.
Yes, they have a tradition, a memorial wall at their headquarters, honoring employees who died in the line of duty, the unclassified deaths. A reminder of the risks they take.
A somber but important tradition. Okay, so we know the DIA is. Let's talk about where. Headquarters are in D.C., you said.
Right, Joint Base Anacostia Bowling. But they have a major presence inside the Pentagon, too.
Makes sense.
And crucially, they have people embedded within every unified combatant command globally.
So right there with the operational military commanders.
Exactly, providing direct intelligence support. Plus, those defense attaché offices and embassies worldwide, over 100 of them. That global network is huge.
Okay, so a big D.C. presence, but spread out globally, too. What about other key spots here in the U.S.?
There are several important ones. The Cole James N. Rowe building down in Charlottesville, Virginia. That's a big analysis center.
Okay.
Then there's the National Center for Medical Intelligence, NCMI, at Fort Detrick in Maryland.
The medical intel place you mentioned.
That's the one. And the Missile and Space Intelligence Center, MSIC, is down in Huntsville, Alabama.
Huntsville. Yeah, makes sense for missiles in space.
It does. Also, the Russell Knox building at Marine Corps Base Quantico, the National Center for Credibility Assessment, that's the Polygraph Center at Fort Jackson, South Carolina.
It's like grass. No.
And the Defense Intelligence Support Center, DISC, in Reston, Virginia. Plus a facility at the Intelligence Community Campus up in Bethesda, Maryland, which also housed the National Intelligence University. So yeah, quite a few key nodes domestically.
It's a pretty wide footprint. Now, how does the DIA stack up against, say, the CIA? That's a comparison people often make.
It is, and the main difference is focus. DIA is primarily looking at national-level defense and military topics. The CIA has a broader intelligence mandate for the president and the cabinet, covering a wider range of global issues, not just military.
So DIA is the military specialist, CIA is broader.
Generally, yes. And the DIA has this specific designation as a combat support agency.
What does that mean exactly? Combat support.
It means they have special responsibilities to meet the intelligence needs of the Secretary of Defense, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and the combatant commanders, the generals and admirals running operations worldwide, both in peace and wartime.
Providing that direct intel support to the warfighters.
Right, making sure military leaders have what they need for planning and operations.
Okay. And the DIA-CIA relationship, is it competitive, cooperative, or a bit of both?
It's more cooperative than you might think, usually. There's a division of labor, like a former official gave an example. The CIA might not focus heavily on tracking, say, every surface-to-air missile in Libya because they have other global priorities.
But that's bread and butter for the DIA.
Exactly. That's their area of expertise. Interestingly, though, their operations officers, both DIA and CIA, get similar initial clandestine training at Camp Peary, the farm.
Huh. So, same basic training, different missions?
Pretty much a shared foundation in tradecraft.
And how does DIA interact with the Army's G2 or the Navy's Intel? Do they step on each other's toes?
The idea is they don't. DIA assists and coordinates the service intelligence components. DIA generally handles the national-level, long-term strategic picture. The services focus more on tactical, short-term needs specific to their operations.
Strategic versus tactical. Got it. And you mentioned the Russian GRU in the notes. How does DIA compare there?
That's a good question. The GRU is often seen as covering almost all of Russia's military intelligence, including things like special forces. The DIA is a huge part of U.S. defense intelligence, but it doesn't encompass everything in the same way. It's more of a key coordinator and national-level provider within a larger U.S. system.
Okay, so not a direct one-to-one comparison.
Not exactly. The DIA chairs the Military Intelligence Board, though, which helps coordinate across the DoD intel community.
Right. And I saw something about a database upgrade. MIDB being replaced.
Yes, MIDB, the Military Intelligence Integrated Database, it's been around a long time. It's being replaced now, starting spring 2024, by MARS. Machine-Assisted Analytic Rapid Repository System. The goal is to use more modern tech, AI, to handle and analyze the massive amounts of data they deal with.
Bringing AI into the mix. Makes sense. Okay, let's peek inside the organization. How is it structured? You mentioned directorates.
That's right. 4 main ones: operations, analysis, science and technology, and mission services.
All right, let's take operations first. That sounds like where the action is.
It often is. A key part of operations is the Defense Clandestine Service, or DCS.
DCS, okay.
They handle the clandestine espionage, the human intelligence gathering worldwide. They're the executive agent for HUMANT within DoD, working closely with the CIA's operations side.
So case officers, interrogators.
Exactly. Case officers, managing agents, interrogation experts, field analysts, linguists, technical specialists, sometimes special operations forces support.
A whole range of skills. What else is under operations?
The Defense Attaché System, DAS, these are the military diplomats and embassies. They represent the U.S. military, but also do overt, open human IP collection.
Overt human, okay.
And there's the Defense Cover Office, DCO. They're crucial for setting up and managing the covers for intelligence officers operating undercover, protecting their identities.
Essential work for clandestine ops.
Yeah.
Okay, what about the Directorate for Analysis?
Their job is managing all source analysis, taking information from HUMANT, SIGINT, imagery, Makisasint, open sources, everything, and producing finished intelligence assessments.
So synthesizing all the data.
Right. On military issues, political, economic, medical things that impact defense, their analysts contribute heavily to things like the president's daily brief and national intelligence estimates.
High-level stuff.
Definitely. And interestingly, the DIA actually has the most forward-deployed analysts in the whole IC.
Yeah.
They're out there supporting commands directly.
Right where the action is? Okay. Directorate for Science and Technology, that sounds like the Mason place.
Exactly. They handled the technical collection assets and analysis. Mason T is their big thing: radar, acoustics, nuclear detection, chem bio signatures. They are the national manager for Mason T.
The technical experts, yep.
And they also manage crucial communication networks like JWICS, the main top secret network, and Stone Ghost, which is for intel sharing with key allies.
Okay, managing the pipes and the technical collection. Last one. Mission services, what do they do?
They're the support structure: administration, technical support, program management. They run the training centers like the Joint Military Intelligence Training Center and the Attaché School.
Training the workforce.
And importantly, they handle counterintelligence for the DIA itself, and they lead counterintelligence efforts across the DoD, protecting against spies and threats. So they keep the whole engine running.
The essential backbone. Got it. I also saw mentions of regional and functional centers.
Right. They have 5 regional centers: America's Transnational Threats, Indo-Pacific, Europe, Eurasia, Middle East, Africa, and a dedicated China mission group, plus 2 functional ones: Defense Resources and Infrastructure and Defense Combating Terrorism.
So focusing expertise geographically and by threat type.
Exactly. Allows for specialization.
And the DIA manages some centers for the whole community too.
Yes, like the National Center for Medical Intelligence, the Missile and Space Intelligence Center, the National Media Exploitation Center, which analyzes foreign media, and the Underground Facilities Analysis Center. They leverage DIA expertise for the benefit of the entire IC.
Okay. And there's one more directorate mentioned, Directorate for Intelligence Joint Staff, J2.
Right, J2. The DIA manages J2, which is the main intelligence support arm for the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
Advising the top military leadership.
Precisely. Providing foreign military intelligence for policy and war planning. And J2 people are co-located with the combatant commands, too, for that direct link. It's all very interconnected.
It really sounds like it.
Yeah.
One thing that surprised me was learning the DIA has its own police force.
Yeah, that catches people off guard sometimes. They established the DIA police back in 1963.
Why?
To protect DIA people and facilities, they have about 170 sworn, uniformed federal officers. They handle security, law enforcement on DIA sites, emergency response.
Are they like regular federal police?
Pretty much. Trained at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, FLETC. They operate under a special deputation from the U.S. Marshals. They even have canine units, HZMAT, a special response team for tactical situations.
Wow, a full-fledged police force within an intel agency.
Shows how seriously they take security.
Definitely. Okay, let's rewind a bit. Talk about the history. How did the DIA even come about? What was before it?
Before 1961, you had the Army, Navy, and Air Force all doing their own intelligence thing, collecting, analyzing, reporting separately.
Sounds inefficient.
It was. Lots of duplication, extra cost, and worse, sometimes conflicting reports landed on the Secretary of Defense's desk. Not ideal when you need a clear picture.
Yeah, you don't want different branches telling you different things about the same threat.
Exactly. So President Eisenhower set up a joint study group in 1960 to look into it. Based on their recommendations, Defense Secretary Robert McNamara decided to create the DIA in '61.
McNamara, okay.
He tasked the Joint Chiefs to drop a plan to integrate DoD's military intelligence under this new agency. Of course, the existing service intel units weren't thrilled.
I can imagine. Turf wars.
Oh, yeah. Bureaucracy, resistance. But Air Force Lieutenant General Joseph Carroll pushed it forward, led the planning. The directive was published August 1st, 61, and they officially started operations October 1st.
So, born out of a need for efficiency and a unified view. What were the early days like? Any big challenges or successes?
The big challenge was getting the services to actually transfer functions, people, money over to the new agency. It was gradual, sometimes reluctant.
Right.
But just a year later, October 62, they faced a massive test, the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Wow, right into the fire.
Totally. And it was DIA analysts who pored over the intel and picked the exact U-2 flight path that found the Soviet missiles. That discovery was obviously critical, a huge early win that proved their value.
Talk about proving your worth early on. What happened after Cuba? Did they keep growing?
They did, rapidly. In late 62, they set up the Defense Intelligence School, now the National Intelligence University. Early 63 saw a new production center at Arlington Hall Station, consolidating analysis. They set up an ADP center, dissemination center, a SciTech Intel Directorate.
Building the infrastructure.
Exactly. By mid-63, they took over J2 support for the Joint Staff, and in 65, they got responsibility for the Defense Attaché system worldwide. Big expansions.
So really consolidating military intelligence functions. The late 60s were pretty turbulent globally.
Yeah.
How did the DIA cope?
It was nonstop. You had China's Cultural Revolution kicking off, unrest in Africa, South Asia, fighting in Cyprus, Kashmir, the whole missile gap debate with the Soviets.
A lot to track.
And then later in the decade, the Tet Offensive in Vietnam, the Six-Day War, North Korea grabbing the USS Pueblo, the Soviets invading Czechoslovakia. It was a relentless pace of crises for them to analyze.
A real trial by fire. What about the 70s? Did things calm down?
Not really calm down, but the focus shifted. The early 70s were about moving from just getting organized to becoming a really credible go-to source for national-level intelligence. This was tough because they faced big budget and manpower cuts then.
Doing more with less.
Pretty much. But by the mid-70s, their reputation grew. They were providing key analysis on Nixon's China visit, the coup in Chile, POWs in Southeast Asia, détente, arms control talks, the Yom Kippur War, the energy crisis. They really solidified their role.
So building credibility through major world events, the late 70s, early 80s, Iran, Afghanistan, more big challenges.
Yeah, the late 70s brought more congressional scrutiny, more resource declines, and there were acknowledged intelligence gaps, particularly regarding the Iranian Revolution and the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan.
Tough times.
Led to changes. Early 80s, they reorganized into those 5 directorates we talked about, and crucially, in 1981, they started publishing Soviet Military Power.
Yes, I've heard of that. That was influential, wasn't it?
Hugely influential. An annual detailed look at the Soviet military became a standard reference worldwide. They also started Project Socrates then, tracking tech flow to the USSR.
And what about the clandestine side during the Cold War peak?
In '84, they set up a specific clandestine services unit called Star Watcher. The goal was to boost intel collection, especially in developing countries, and create a better career path for military human officers, sort of complementing what the CIA was doing.
Formalizing the DoD spycraft. Okay, fast forward to the end of the Cold War. Huge shift. How did DIA adapt?
Big-time reevaluation, like everyone in the IC. But when Iraq invaded Kuwait in '90, they reacted fast. Set up a 247 crisis cell, a joint intelligence center at the Pentagon, supported Desert Storm, showed they could pivot. Then in '92, they absorbed the Armed Forces Medical Intelligence Center and the Missile and Space Intelligence Center, bringing more specialized production under their roof.
More consolidation.
Yeah.
Then came 9/11. A terrible day for the country, and for the DIA, too, I understand.
Tragically, yes. 7 DIA employees were killed in the Pentagon attack, the agency's largest single loss of life. There's a memorial for them at HQ now.
Awful.
And after 9/11, naturally, the focus shifted dramatically, much more emphasis on counterterrorism, nuclear proliferation, North Korea, Iran. They were deeply involved in the intelligence leading up to the 2003 Iraq invasion and the later search for WMDs with the Iraq Survey Group.
A whole new era of threats. What about more recently? Any key changes in the last decade or so?
Well, in 2012, they beefed up their clandestine side again, consolidating things into the Defense Clandestine Service we mentioned, aiming for better human.
Right.
In 2015, significantly, they appointed a British Royal Air Force officer as a deputy director, a big step for integration with the Five Eyes allies.
Interesting. Closer allied cooperation.
Yeah. And another trend. By 2020, a lot of work, especially in tech areas like S&T, media exploitation, missile analysis, even polygraphs and workforce planning,
Yeah.
was being done by contractors. Public-private partnerships becoming more common.
Outsourcing some functions.
Seems like it.
Yeah.
In 2021, the National Intelligence University moved under the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. And as we said, the Mars database upgrade started in 2024. So constantly evolving.
Constant adaptation. Okay, let's talk about getting a job there. Security must be incredibly tight.
Extremely. Everyone, employees, interns, contractors, needs top secret clearance with sensitive compartmented information access, TSSCI.
ASSCI.
A regular DoD top secret isn't enough. And importantly, your SCI access isn't automatically transferable between DIA and, say, CIA or NSA. You have to be cleared specifically for DIA's compartments.
Really highlights the sensitivity. What's the vetting like?
It's intense. Very thorough background checks, psychological screening, drug tests, in-depth security interviews, and the polygraph.
The lie detector. Mandatory.
Yep. Mandatory. DIA actually runs the National Center for Credibility Assessment, which sets polygraph standards for the whole IC.
So they're serious about polys, or there's different from, say, the CIA's.
Generally, yes. DIA polys are usually counterintelligence scope focused on espionage, terrorism, unauthorized disclosures, often seen as less intrusive into your personal life than the full scope polys the CIA or NSA might use.
CI scope versus full scope.
And typically you only get 1 or maybe 2 shots to pass the DIA polygraph. Plus, employees usually face periodic polys throughout their careers.
Constant vetting. Makes sense. What about budget and headcount? I assume that's classified.
The exact numbers are yes, but we have estimates. Around 17,000 employees currently, about 2/3 civilian. Roughly half work overseas, 140-plus locations.
17,000. Still a big number. Any idea on the budget?
Hard to pin down. Back in '94, they asked for maybe $4 billion over 5 years. By 2006, estimates were around $3 billion annually. The Snowden leaks in 2013 showed the General Defense Intelligence Program, which DIA manages, but isn't just for DIA, was about $4.4 billion a year. So significant funding.
Billions, yeah. Reflects the mission. Now, inevitably, intelligence work involves espionage, both by the DIA and against it. Any notable cases?
Absolutely. On the spying for DIA side, there have been Russians like Viktor Kalyadin and Igor Sutyagin who faced prison. Edmund Pope, an American businessman jailed in Russia. Jerzy Straw in Poland, executed. Nutin Sharansky, the famous Soviet dissident. And tragically, DIA officer Charles Dennis McKee killed on Pan Am 103.
Some famous names, some less so. High risks involved. What about spying against the DIA? Insiders?
Unfortunately, yes. That's the constant counterintelligence battle. The big one was Ana Belén Montes, a top Cuba analyst who spied for Havana for years.
I remember that case. Shocking.
It was. Also, Ronald Monteberto, a China analyst who gave info to Beijing. Waldo Doberstein, indicted for selling secrets to Libya, though he died before trial. And more recently, Henry Kyle Fries, who leaked classified reports to journalists.
Stark reminders of the insider threat. Okay, like any powerful agency, the DIA hasn't been without controversy. What are some of the big ones?
There have been several, yeah. One major area was allegations related to harsh interrogation techniques, especially post 9/11.
In Guantanamo and elsewhere.
Exactly. Reports surfaced in 2003 about the DIA being involved in developing techniques, maybe including drugs, humiliation, sleep deprivation. The DIA denied drugs were for mind-altering purposes, but it raised flags. Then FBI reports described DIA interrogators at Guantanamo allegedly using tactics like forcing detainees to watch porn, using Israeli flags, strobe lights, even impersonating FBI agents.
Impersonating the FBI. Wow.
Yeah, the FBI was very concerned. A military inquiry found some treatment degrading, but not inhumane. Didn't really address the impersonation claims. There were also reports of a black jail in Bagram, Afghanistan, run by DIA-related staff with accusations of beatings and sexual humiliation.
Very serious allegations.
Extremely. And reports that DIA officials who complained about harsh interrogations by military task forces were threatened. Even the band Skinny Puppy got involved, sending the DIA a symbolic bill after finding out their music was used in interrogations.
Skinny Puppy. That's unexpected.
Right. But it highlights the concerns. Another area of controversy was attempts to expand domestic activities.
Domestic spying.
Potential for it. Mid-2000s reports that DIA wanted authority to secretly recruit U.S. persons as informants without disclosure. That got shot down. Also reports of monitoring individuals and vehicles in U.S. cities, raising privacy alarms.
Yeah, that crosses a line for many people.
And in 2008, they got authority for offensive counterintelligence, maybe planting moles, disinformation. They said they'd coordinate with the FBI for cases involving Americans, but it still sparked debate about domestic reach, especially as they absorbed the unit involved in the earlier Talon database controversy.
Blurring the lines between foreign intel and domestic activity is always tricky. What about Able Danger, the 9/11 connection?
Right. Former DIA officer Anthony Schaffer claimed their data mining project, Able Danger, identified 9/11 hijacker Mohammed Atta beforehand, but the agency failed to act or share the info.
A huge claim.
Yeah.
Was it substantiated?
The DIA and others strongly denied it. Schaffer lost his clearance. His book, Operation Dark Heart, faced Pentagon attempts to suppress it, which just drew more attention. Multiple investigations found no proof DIA missed a chance to stop 9/11 due to Able Danger, but it remains controversial.
A persistent controversy. And there was something about German neo-Nazi murders.
Yeah, a 2011 report in a German magazine, Stern, alleged German intel and DIA officers witnessed a police officer's murder by far-right terrorists while surveilling someone else nearby and didn't intervene or report it properly.
Seriously.
The German agency denied it strongly. DIA didn't comment. It caused a stir in Germany, raising questions about intelligence agencies' responsibilities.
Deeply disturbing if true. One more, buying data without warrants.
Yes. Contract records reportedly show DIA, like other agencies, buys commercially available data, location data, internet activity, etc., without getting warrants.
Because it's commercially available.
That's the argument. But privacy advocates say it's an end run around the Fourth Amendment, letting them get sensitive data without judicial oversight. It's an ongoing debate.
The classic security versus privacy debate. Despite the controversies, you mentioned the memorial wall. Tell us a bit more about how they honor their fallen.
The main memorial wall at HQ honors those who died in the line of duty in unclassified circumstances. It was dedicated back in '88. There's a quote on it. "Poor is the nation that has no heroes, but beggared is the nation that has and forgets them."
Powerful quote.
It is. They also have a specific memorial for the 7 employees killed on 9/11 at the Pentagon. And another one, the Torchbearers Wall, honors former employees who made exceptional contributions over their careers. It shows a deep respect for their people's service and sacrifice.
Important traditions. Now, it's always interesting how these agencies pop up in popular culture. Where might people have seen or heard references to the DIA?
Oh, all over the place, really. TV shows like Madam Secretary, Covert Affairs, NCIS, and its spin-offs, Burn Notice, 24.
Lots of procedurals and spy shows.
Yep. Movies, too. The Equalizer films, Gemini Man, American Sniper, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, even comedies like Spies Like Us or satires like The Men Who Stare at Goats.
A real mix.
Books, both nonfiction like Operation Dark Heart and fiction, video games like Metal Gear or Fallout 4, even tabletop RPGs like Delta Green. They're definitely part of the fictional intelligence landscape, even if the portrayals aren't always accurate.
Yeah, usually dramatized quite a bit. Lastly, what about their seal and badge? Any interesting symbolism?
The seal has a flaming torch for knowledge, intelligence against a dark background representing the unknown. There are 2 red atomic ellipses, signifying the science and tech aspect, and 13 stars and a wreath borrowed from the DoD seal for glory and peace through strength.
Okay.
They also have a distinct agency badge for personnel and a specific special agent badge for those investigators, visual symbols of their mission and authority.
Interesting details. Well, this has been a really comprehensive deep dive. We've covered a huge amount of ground on the DIA. What are the main things you think listeners should take away?
I think the key thing is realizing just how complex and multifaceted the DIA is. It's got this massive global reach, a really critical mission focused on military intelligence for top leaders. We've seen how it's evolved since '61, constantly adapting to new threats, new technologies. It operates in this intricate web with other agencies and the military, playing a really unique role. And yeah, it's faced challenges and controversies, which probably isn't surprising for an agency in this line of work.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, what stood out was just the sheer scale of their global presence, people everywhere, often unseen, and understanding their specific role in things like NASCENT, that technical intelligence side. That was really illuminating. Hopefully, for you listening, this has given a clearer, more nuanced picture of the DIA and the vital work it does for national security.
Agreed. And maybe a final thought to leave you with. When you consider the DIA's power, its intelligence gathering, its operations both overt and covert, it really makes you think about that fundamental challenge for democracies, doesn't it? How do you balance the need for effective national security with the equally important needs for transparency, oversight, and accountability?
That balance.
Yeah. It's a constant tension and definitely something worth pondering further. How do we ensure agencies like the DIA have the tools they need while also making sure they operate within the bounds we set as a society? It's a question with no easy answers.